Welcome back everyone. Yep, that is of course right. So welcome to a surprise review. So for today's review, I'm of course going to be taking a look at Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars. So this game came out in 2009 on the Nintendo DS and the PlayStation Portable. It's a spin-off of the Grand Theft Auto series, but it's set in the HD universe. It's set a year after the events of Grand Theft Auto 4 and follows a character known as Huang, who is forced to avenge his father after his father mysteriously dies, and a sword known as Yujian is of course stolen from them. This is a pretty interesting game, and I'll do a quick story recap. So basically, Huang is sent to America to deliver the sword to his uncle Wu Li, or Kenny. It's there at an airport that he is of course ambushed and left for dead by some mobsters. And unfortunately for him, the sword is of course stolen. This ends up getting Kenny demoted because he could not present the sword to Xin Yaoming, the leader of the Triads. And it's, of course, during this time that Huang is forced to work for his uncle he helps his uncle try to get back the respect he lost, and of course works with two other Triad bosses, Chan Jiaoming and Zhao Ming, both of which are trying to be the next Triad leader like Kenny. So the first part of the game is just pretty much doing dirty work for these three. Eventually, Huang meets a cop known as Wade Heston, who's trying to get a big bus so he can save his career. And of course, Wayne is looking for the assassins who stole the sword. Huang is looking for them too. And of course, the two start to work with each other and start to investigate the Midtown gangsters, much to much to the frustration of the Triads, as they were their allies. And of course, that's not the only thing going on, as at some point in the game, the Triads start to be ratted out. And of course, Huang is forced to find the rat and deal with them. This eventually causes Huang to start working more with Heston, as they're trying to find out who the rat is. But Huang also works with a man known as Felipe D'Avanzo, who is an Italian mobster, and who believes that a man known as Jimmy Caper was ratting out the Triads. Huang also works with a private investigator known as Lester Lorock to help him investigate the Angels of Death. Unfortunately, that leads to nothing, as the Angels were of course clean, and Rudy was using Huang to fight a war against another mob boss. Time is of course ticking, and Huang is, threatened with his safety to find the rat, and even accused of being the rat at a point in the game. Eventually, they're able to find out that it wasn't just one rat, but it was two. Chan Jiaoming and Zhao Ming were supposedly the rats who were betraying the Triads. And of course, with permission from Sin, Huang is sent to kill them both. Sin, of course, retires and makes Kenny the new Triad leader. Now, at first it seems that that's going to be really it for the game. Well, there's much more. Turns out, the person who was helping Wade Heston, they were also working with the rats, and they gave them the wrong files, so two men who had nothing to do with the FBI were, of course, killed. And of course, that brings us to the final mission, where Huang must confront the actual rat and figure out who actually killed his father. This is a shocking twist, so I would skip forward a bit if you don't want to have it spoiled. But turns out Kenny was the rat and Huang's father's killer. Kenny was pretty much meant to give the sword to Sin, even if it meant the death of his brother. Kenny, of course, kills him, but Kenny also sets up the ambush to get Huang killed or injured or just have the sword be lost. And of course, he would then use his connections to start ratting out the triads because, well, I mean, he hates Sin and he hates Shan and Zhao. So it kind of makes sense. So it did kind of make sense. And of course, well, the game ends as Juan has to fight Kenny and avenge his father's death. Of course, they're able to make that happen, but during the process, Sin is heavily wounded, and other groups of authorities try to bust the scene. Wayne, and probably one of the best things that he's done in the game, pretty much says that Huang is an innocent party, but accuses Sin of being, well, criminal and arrests him. With Kenny dead, and along with Chan and Zhao, and Sin potentially dying from these wounds or spending the rest of his life in prison, he does say that Huang has the abilities to become a triad leader. Now, of course, this could probably be taken in one of two ways. Either he's saying that Huang is the new triad leader, or he's saying he has leadership skills. Now, more likely, maybe it's just probably leadership skills. The game doesn't outright confirm whether or not Huang does become the triad leader, but the game ends, well, just kind of like that. Now, of course, there is an epilogue for this game where you do work with a character known as Xin, who is the brother of Ling, who appears earlier in the game. These, of course, can have been accessed from the Rockstar Social Club, so technically, I guess they're probably DLC or something, but I'll cover them real quick. There's also other stuff that the PSP version added, where Chan and Huang work with a reporter, but that doesn't really go anywhere, but it's still something I'd mention. But of course, Huang and Xin do work with each other, and Xin is trying to get Huang killed, as he believes that Huang was the reason why Ling died, only to eventually learn that it wasn't. And so that's really the story. Now, of course, Chinatown West did have a bunch of side content, like collectibles with the security cameras or narcotic dealing, but also had various time trials, races, and some strangers. I think overall, the strangers themselves are pretty interesting. You have some really interesting missions, like this girl who gets obsessed with Huang after he helps her, a right-wing conspiracy nut, a dude going for some auditions only to really lose his focus, and of course, quite a few others. So, the question remains, is Chinatown Wars good? Personally, I think so. While the game is in a top-down perspective and might turn off some players, I do think it was worth checking out. I think it's a really interesting game, and it has one of the best stories I've played. There's a few other issues with this one, such as the fact that, well, it feels like they should have had more of a definitive ending, but it also feels like they also should have allowed you to enter more places too. But other than that, I don't really have too many complaints with this game. I think the story was pretty good. I think the characters were well written, and I do like the side content a lot. Overall, I think this was a really good DS game, and I'm sure that's a terrific PSP game. Unfortunately, it's only on those two consoles, aside from mobile phones, but I don't know if you can still download them at this point. So hopefully in future they do port this game or at least remaster it to other consoles. But if you're looking for other games, or are a fan of the Grand Theft Auto franchise, I definitely recommend checking this one out. I thought it was pretty good, and I think more people should play this one. But that's all I really have to say for today's video. And of course, eventually I do plan to try covering Advance and of course the Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories games. I just don't know when those will happen. But as I said before, I definitely recommend this one. Especially if you're looking for new handheld games to play. But that's all I really have to say for today's video. So of course, until then, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful night.